I think they backtracked for 6 months. So whoever took it, not only did they take it out of circulation, but they went in the database and they erased it. And I'm serious about this. I enlisted in the Marine Corps under the delayed entry program in July of 1994. And I graduated Mount Tabor High School in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in June of 1995. And I enlisted, of course, delayed entry a year. So I went to boot camp on the 18th of June, which is a Sunday. I went to boot camp. I graduated 8 September of 95. And from there, my MOS was 0311, which was a grunt. And from there, I went to School of Infantry training at Camp Geiger in late September of 95. I did not complete training because I was injured and I hurt my back, and I was sent to the medical platoon there on Camp Geiger, North Carolina, which is adjacent to Camp Lejeune. And I was there, I don't know, for about a month or 2 months. And in late January of 96, I was given new orders and given a new MOS, military occupational skill, listing as 7212 Stinger Avenger Gunner, and subsequently given 10 days leave and then sent to Fort Bliss at El Paso, Texas. So I was in training to be an air defense gunner on the FIM 92 Alpha Stinger missile. It's a surface-to-air missile, and the Avenger weapon system, which is a pedestal and a turret with 8 Stingers mounted on the back of a Humvee. And I was in training for February to late May of 96. And then after graduating from that school, I was reassigned my first duty station, 2nd Marine Air Wing, 28th Marine Air Control Group, 2nd Low Altitude Air Defense Battalion, Cherry Point, North Carolina. And I was assigned a Battery B in June of 96. And I went on several operations, we call them ops for short. And basically, I was there, and then I was transferred over to the section for laser strike in February of 97. After going to weapons and tactics instructor 197 in Yuma, Arizona. When I got back, I was asked if I wanted to go, and I said sure, so I volunteered, and I was sent to the section. And then we shipped out in March, of that year. We were sent there to provide perimeter security to this radar installation. Basically, this radar station was tracking supposedly drug aircraft that were exiting in and out of Peru and Bolivian airspace. Basically, what we were doing there, we had live ammo and weapons. And one day, Sergeant Allen and the other sergeant, and I'll remember his name soon, Sergeant Atkins. They were, and Sergeant Montalegre, and he was a staff sergeant, E7, E6. The other guys were E5 sergeant, and they came to us and said, look, we got a situation where we have an aircraft crash that's possibly friendly, and they need us to go and secure the crash site. And we're like, fine. So this is early. This is late at night. I know about 11 or 12 at night, and I was on guard duty that night, so I was already up, and it was my shift. We have 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off, and where we rotate our section. So we all went out that night. We got up, 3 or 4 in the morning and headed out in Humvees. We had about 5 or 6 Hummers, and we drove to where we needed to go, and then from there, we had to hump through the bush. So we got there, 6, 7, just when daylight had just started to get light. And we found the area really easy because there was a huge gash in the land where something had crashed, and it didn't break anything. I don't know if you've ever been to a crash site where you had trees just broken like in half. Everything was burned, and it was like if you had almost cut like a warm butter with a knife. It was just, it's like something on fire or had or some kind of energy, like a laser almost had like gutted. It was really strange, and Anyway, I was in the front with Sergeant Allen and Sergeant Atkins. We were up front, and we were point basically, and we were like, I don't know, 10, 20 meters ahead of everyone else. We all had maps and radios and compasses, so we knew so we wouldn't get lost. And basically, we were the first ones to see the object. And basically, what happened is we didn't go straight up the hill, because basically this thing went up the hill and then off into the side of the ravine or the ridge. This is about a 200-foot ridge at least. Solid granite. I mean, it's rock. I don't know if it's granite. It's just, it was buried in the side of the cliff. But anyway, we didn't go straight up. We went on to the left and walked up to the top of the ridge. And that's when we saw the craft. This is a huge ship, and you know, I used to be into sci-fi movies when I was a kid, but this is nothing like I'd ever seen. And when I first saw it, you know, I was scared. It scared the heck out of me. You know, I didn't know what to do, and it was just it was really confusing. So we all climbed down, and it was buried for about a 45-degree angle and into the side of the the cliff there, the ridge. And I mean, this is a steep cliff. I mean, it's straight up and down, and it was dripping this like syrup viscosity, this liquid. It was everywhere, all down, everywhere when we went down there, because there were plants and everything. And it was weird. It was a purplish green color, and it was a greenish purple, and it kind of like fluctuated. Like you couldn't really, when you'd look at it one time, then you'd look at it again, and it would like. It's almost like it. I don't know if it was like alive and it was just changing, but every time you looked at it, you saw a different shade of greenish purple. It was strange. There was one light on it that slowly went around, and the machine, I could hear it. I guess because it was still functioning, and it had like a hum to it, like a really bass. Like say if you unplugged an amp from a guitar, that kind of it was really it was really deep. And it kind of fluctuated, and then finally it just cut off, and everything just seemed to stop, except the colors and the shades, and it was still that way. When I was looking at the craft, it was buried, so I could see the back of it, and there were these large vents. Well, they look like vents, sort of like a fish gill on the back. I couldn't see around the other side, and I'm assuming that it was the same way on the other side. That looked like, I don't know, that could have been used for propulsion. I'm not sure. Again, this liquid that had come out of the ship it got on my camis, and you know it discolored them and ate them almost like acid. And then it ate some of the skin off, the hair off my arms, and and I didn't know that until later on. But basically, when I was down there with the ship, there was 3 holes, and I guess I'd assume that they were hatches, but there's no way to tell. They were not flush with the with the body, the main body of the craft. There, I don't know, a few inches below. I knew there was one on top because you could slightly see it. I don't know about the other side, but there was another hatch, the same width and diameter or whatever of the top hatch, and it was kind of crooked to the side, and it was half open. And I didn't see any lights or anything coming out of it, but I felt this presence. That it's real strange. I guess it was almost like. I think I told Leslie this, I thought the creatures they conned me, and it was like weird, and I think they were trying to communicate with me, like, I guess telepathically. It's really weird, and I don't believe in any of that stuff, but anyway, I could hear, like, and it was terrible, because it kept going, and then it still comes and goes. It's like basically sitting in your car and turning on like an AM station that's not, it's just white noise, and just turning it up really high. And that's what I heard when I first got in there. This is pretty crude 2-dimensional drawing, but this is jungle here, and this was the craft, and it was embedded in the rock like this. And I'm not sure if this tapered off or how it went, but these right here are the hatches. These 2 objects here. This one was the one that was half open, and you could see into it, but I mean it was just black. It was like looking into a closet. 10 meters in width and about 20 meters in length. I'm just not sure. That's just an estimate from what I remember. But it was huge. I mean, it was big, man. And it was shaped like almost like between an egg and like a teardrop almost. And it looked really aerodynamic. at least in the shape. But the closer I was close enough to take out detail on it that it was not just smooth. There was there was bumps and notches and things in it. It was really organic. It was almost like art. That's really how you would. It didn't look like something that somebody made in a shop. It didn't have that clunkiness or that tin can kind of deal. It was more of art. I would say. It looked to be that it could have been handmade, but out of what and what materials, I don't know. Definitely nothing like titanium. It wasn't. See, this is the whole thing. It looked metal, but it didn't have any reflection on it, man. I mean, the sun's coming down, and if you got something made of metal, regardless of it, I mean, maybe if it's subdued with paint and it's got a cami sheen on it, you're not going to see any reflection. But I could see the different shades of the craft. They didn't shine. It just like it was. It didn't reflect anything, and I guarantee if I'd have thrown like a flashlight on it, wouldn't have reflected it. Well, the creatures, I think, were calling me to help them. Everything was going to be all right. And I was so mesmerized and into it, and Sergeant Allen and Atkins, they're hollering, they're cussing at me, get the hell out of there.
Why?
Well, I think they lied. I think that they were scared, and they didn't want me to get hurt. I don't know. They were real pissed off at me after subsequently. But basically, what happened was after we climbed back up, I think the DOE, Department of Energy people were there. They knew about it, and I don't know why we went there still to this day. But anyway, I was arrested. I had all my gear taken from me by men in black camis, had no name tags. They were older men, probably in their late 30s or 40s. How long was I at the site? Probably about 15, 20 minutes. We were the first people on the position, yeah.
And then shortly you said there were other people?
Right, there were other people. I guess they were government, I don't know. They were there, and they had containment suits, and they had guys. They had a position that looked like, I don't know if it was already there or there was some gap in the jungle where they landed 2 CH-47 Chinooks. They're Army twin rotor helicopters, and they're big, and they had guys coming out in these containment suits. They must have just got there, I don't know, while we were down in the gorge, because when we climbed up, there those guys were. There were the guys in the black camis. And then they put me on a cot that they had, and they had me cuffed with those, they had me cuffed both hands down, and then they had my legs tied together with those plastic fasteners that the police use. I don't know, they're like kind of like cuffs. And then they took me in the CH-47, and they sent me to. We took off, and they didn't drug me or anything like that, and I was just awake there. And
did they explain why they were treating you this way?
No. They said that that they were cussing at me, saying that I was a dumb asshole, and that why don't you fucking people ever pay attention to orders, and you weren't supposed to be there, and you're not supposed to see this, and you're going to be dangerous if we let you go, and all this stuff. And, man, I thought they were going to kill me for about 2 days, I think. And they had a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, and he did not identify himself. He might have, I just don't remember. And he told me, if we just took you out in the jungle, they'd never find you out there. And I'm like, well. And, I didn't want to say, I didn't want to test him to see if he'd really do that. So I said, yeah. And he's like, you got to sign these papers, and you never saw this, and I don't exist, and this situation never happened. And if you tell anybody, you'll just come up missing. And he was a real abrasive, just a cynical asshole, I guess is the best way to put it. I was at the same installation, but they had me segregated with Air Force personnel for like 3 weeks, and then after that I was sent back, approximately. All I saw there was Americans, and there's a lot of other nationalities there, Chinese, Germans I think were there, and a lot of other people were at this other base. But this thing, it was really, I didn't go in, and all they did was take me to like a you couldn't call it a cell, it was more of like it was more like an interrogation room, and I sat in there for, I don't know, 15 hours those guys with the light. I mean, they put this light in my face and they were yelling at me, and I couldn't really readily identify any of those guys, but I knew one of them was at the crash site, because they were one of the guys that I recognized, because he was in black fatigues, and he was like, "What'd you see?" And he's like, "Yeah," he's like growling. You know, he goes, "Are you a patriot? You like the Constitution?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, we do what, you know, we're on our own program, you know, we don't obey, we just do what we want." And he's like, "Yeah." And they're like, and they're growling and they're relishing, you know, and they're yelling at me and they're hollering and cursing, and "You didn't see anything, you know, and we'll do you and your whole goddamn family." And they're you know, it was basically that for about 8 or 9 hours. I mean, they took breaks. They were like, "Look, man, we're gonna take you off in a helicopter and just kick your ass out in the jungle, and we're gonna end you and all this." And they didn't physically put their hands on me, but I was sitting in a chair and I was handcuffed to the chair and I couldn't move. So basically, you know, it was just this like harassment. I didn't eat anything for like a whole day. No water, no nothing. I just sat there. My section was about eight to 10 guys.
And they all saw it?
No, just me, Sergeant Allen, and Sergeant Adkins were the only ones that saw it. Now, they saw the crash, and, well, at least, you know, the jungle where it came through, they saw all that, but they didn't go into the ridge, because, like I said, we were 10 to 20 meters in front of them, and they radioed to Hall that we found it and everything's fine. It was in late March, early April of '97. So we're talking, like, when I got back, you know, I approached Sergeant Allen about it, because, of course, he's married and he's got like 1 or 2 kids. And I went to his house on base housing, and he got all upset and threw me out of his house, said he didn't want to talk about it. And I mean, I guess they scared those guys too, man. And see, I mean, you got to understand, you know, I can't speak for the rest of the armed service, but the Marine Corps, it's monolithic. And when they're told to do something, they're gonna do it. And if you don't want to go along, they'll basically railroad you. I didn't want to keep my mouth shut about it, and I told my First Sergeant Powell. I told him about it, and I don't even know I don't think he's still there anymore. I mean, we're talking 3 years ago. So so it was life forms in the ship. It's almost like if someone was like reading your mind, and that's the way it felt. And I felt like I felt a presence. It was like supernatural. You know, it was no debris that I saw, but there were big gashes in the rear of the aircraft. And what it looked like is that it had been hit with maybe a surface-to-air missile. There were a couple Hawk batteries, and that's a homing all the way killer. That's a low to medium surface-to-air anti-aircraft missile. And basically, it doesn't have to hit the target in order to destroy the target. What it does is it gets in proximity of it, and it has a high explosive fragmentation warhead, and it basically explodes like a big shotgun in the vicinity of the targeted area. And by fragmentation, it's supposed to destroy the target or damage it so it won't be able to continue its mission. So I think we shot it down. This is what I think happened: is we shot it down. The Peruvians shot it down. The other guys knew it was flying. I knew that these aircraft were flying because I had been in the command center there at the radar installation, and I heard a couple women there in the Air Force talking about aircraft flying in and out of the atmosphere at Mach 10 plus. So these aircraft are flying around there. They're re-entering the atmosphere and whatever. And I believe that the higher ups knew it was flying in the area. And these were these large vents. They looked like they went into the craft, but I couldn't tell. But it was a shadow. That was the only thing that really cast a shadow. The rest of this, well, this is another thing, was these vents casted a shadow where you could see where there wasn't light, but the sun was shining right on the object, and it didn't cast a shadow, not on anything. And it was like kind of like absorbing the light. It was weird. This is not one of ours, because in Stinger school they teach you about all different kinds of aircraft and stuff like that. And I knew a lot of aircraft anyway, because I like reading about aircraft and data and that stuff. And well, essentially when I saw it, I'm like, man, this is nothing that I know of. Okay, basically the radar was sitting, and this was again on a hill. It's camied up, and it rotates and everything. And there's a command bunker that was built under the earth, and I mean it looks like Star Wars in there, and I mean it's total air conditioned. I mean it's really nice, and there's like computers, and they got the the control panels and everything that control the radars, and I guess they're linked to other sites, and they get other data coming in. And well, we had guard duty, and and the night that this happened, this was in the early evening, and it was my shift, and I was in there, and I was checking people going in and out. They got ID, checking out whatever. So like these two girls, they come walking out, and they were talking about, well, we got these aircraft flying again, and the other girl says, yeah, they're coming in and out of the atmosphere. But he came in there, and he told me to come back with him, and we go back there, and he goes, I want the logs, because they log all these flights coming in, their bearing, what they are, what code they're squawking, all that. So he gets the books, and I had to sign off for him to take all that. I mean, when you got objects that are re-entering the atmosphere and then stopping on a dime and then turning around and going exactly the opposite direction, that's kind of strange. Meteors don't do that.
Now, is this something that was rare or something that was happening?
Oh, this happened all the time. There's like 3 or 4 incidents where I was duty there that the same Air Force officer came in there to get books.
And do you think these were tracked on radars?
Yeah, these were tracked from this particular radar that were logged in. The reason, I guess the reason they were taking them is they didn't want people to know that they're tracking these aircraft. I guess, I mean, again, I'm just assuming that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think they knew it was coming in, and they said, we can't identify it. It's violating airspace. So they could have radioed the Peruvian and said, take them out, and then they shot it down. I was confident that when I saw the aircraft, it had been hit by something that had took it out. They were scared, and it was the apprehension, the fear, and then that they were not here to harm us. That's really what it felt like. And I mean, that's not my own emotions. I've seen the creatures in my thoughts, and I saw them what they look like: oval egg head with big dark eyes, big eyes, a nose and a small mouth, no ears.
And they were projecting that they weren't here. They were here.
They were here they weren't here, they were not going to harm me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically that everything was going to be all right. Just help us get out of here. Mm-hmm. I think there was, I don't know how many were on the craft.
You got the sense more than one.
Yeah, definitely more than one. Probably about 4 or 5. Did I think it was organic and alive? Yeah. I think that that whole craft, it's kind of like, it's almost like if you had an extension like your arm or your leg. And I think the way they can, now, I mean, this is just from thinking about it, that the way they control the craft is with their thoughts, and they have no buttons or anything they push. It's not from Earth.
Oh.
And I mean, I knew that when I looked at it, I mean, I'm not doing this to make money or publicity or anything, but I think it needs to be told, and I think people need to hear it. Whether they agree with me or not is of no consequence. Their cover was there to track drug aircraft. I think, I don't know, but from what I understand, that they were doing a whole lot more than just tracking drug aircraft. I mean, they had laser rangefinders and all kinds of high-tech stuff that I've never seen before, and I couldn't really explain. I know that there was a couple of LRFs there. I don't know what they were, LRF, laser rangefinder. I don't know what they had those do there, but they were huge, man. Looked like big telescopes, but they had them in a bunker, and it was able to rise up, and they can zoom around, and I saw them doing that. I mean, just a bunch of weird stuff. And then, not even that, we had like a live fire shoot in the jungle, and there was Green Berets, Army Airborne, I mean, a bunch of these spec ops guys, Delta Force there, the murderers at Waco were there, so, all these guys out there. I mean, the Chinese are there. They're out there training, man, and they're training the Peruvians too, so it's weird, man, weird situation. Oh, this is definitely something like NATO or some multinational deal. And what I keep going back and really thinking about that. Why are all these guys here? Why would the Chinese be concerned with drugs being smuggled, or or any kind of drug paraphernalia being smuggled into the States? I mean, personally, I know for a fact that our government are the ones that are importing drugs. I mean, but the fact, do I think that this command center? I think it was permanent. I think it's been in operation for a while. They had the big D, Delta Oscar Echo on the back of the couple. The guys were wearing like these rain jackets because it had been raining the previous day, and they were in there, and there were other guys that were wearing containment, like biological suits. It wasn't like that. It was more high tech, like those big jumpsuits that you zip up the back and you can like wear a breathing apparatus in there. Those guys, there was about 30 of them at least, and they marched right by me as I was being taken away. They were marching to get down into the cliff. I guess they were in there to check this thing out. What do I think happened? I think they went in there and they took everything out and they shipped it back home, I think. The behavior of the people, yeah, this is routine, man. I mean, these guys are squared away. They know exactly what they're doing. They've been trained to do this stuff before. That was the atmosphere, the total professional, cold, unassuming nature. It's just, we're here to do a job and, get the fuck out of our ways is basically the attitude. I was raised in a Christian home to believe that there was a God and that He created everything, the universe, and here they are, these creatures that I've never seen before, never come in contact with, and this happens, man, and it made me go almost crazy, not like suicidal, but I just couldn't. I had to like reevaluate everything that I knew. It's sort of like when you're a kid, you've been told Santa Claus is real, and then you find out that he's really not, and then the Tooth Fairy, it's like now that there's no going back. There's no denial. There's no saying, well, this is, I didn't really see this, and I couldn't really deal with it. Is that what do? Do I tell people? But I mean, who's going to believe that a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps in the middle of the fucking jungle is going to see an aircraft like this? It's more like I was sitting and watching like a film, like I was sitting and I was watching what was happening, and I was basically with these aliens, these creatures, and they were touching me, not like sexually or with instruments or anything. They were holding my hands, and they had their hands on me. And they only had 4 fingers, by the way.
Mm-hmm. And what feeling did you get from them?
It was a warm, like loving feeling, like you would have if you were with a family. These creatures are like, I guess you could, probably the closest thing I could say that they were like almost like angels. And if I had to, I'd go with them right now. And I had this obsession with that, I guess because of the pain of the experience and then the Marine Corps, that I just wanted to escape, and I was thinking about, being with these creatures a lot and wanting to go with them and wanting to get out of here. Because these different agencies are just on their own. They don't obey the law. They're rogue, they're just off on their own. Do I think this is a project that goes up through the government and everyone has a piece in it? No. I think these guys just operate on their own. No one knows what they do. These guys, they're just off on their own. There's no oversight, no control, and they just do whatever they want. They don't, and they're evil, man. These people are evil. Do I think it goes to Bill Clinton and to the Congress? There may be guys up there that know about it. They're not going to say anything, man. If they say anything, they're through, For those of you who don't know, and I knew Marine snipers that, I've heard other guys talk about it, and I've heard that these guys, they go on the streets and they stalk people and they kill them. I know that Army Airborne snipers do the same thing. They use Delta Force to go grab these people and silence them by killing them. And maybe something else I ought to tell. And if this goes on, where do they get the money to finance all this stuff? Well, very simply, either they're selling arms, they're selling drugs. A lot of this business about having the spec ops and they get these unlimited amounts of money. Well, they're not coming. It's not coming from the government coffer. It's coming from running drugs or weapons, or the selling of hardware or whatever.
He knew that there was something going on that was a big secret that he could not divulge. Wernher von Braun actually told me that the spin was a lie, that the premise for space-based weaponry, the reasons that were going to be given, the enemies that we were going to identify, were all based on a lie.